There is a command in the Linux terminal that every developer knows, but few have the courage to type without feeling a cold shiver down their spine. It is a short sequence of characters, almost poetic in its capacity for destruction. RMRF. Himovi? Recursive force. Don't ask. Don't hesitate. Just delete. For most of us, using this command wrong means losing a weekend project or having to reconfigure a dev environment. A headache, sure, but nothing a coffee and a Sunday afternoon can fix. But in the corporate world, where infrastructure doesn't live on your laptop but in distributed clusters in the cloud, this command has the power of a nuclear warhead. We love to make jokes about the intern. The meme of the intern who took down production, who deleted the database, who unplugged the network cable. It is a form of psychological defense. We laugh at the intern so we don't have to admit the real terror. The fact that billion-dollar systems responsible for the global digital economy are often one enter key away from total collapse. And the story we are going to tell today isn't about an incompetent intern. It is about something much scarier. It is about the day a senior engineer, a tired veteran working at one of the largest code platforms in the world, accidentally deleted 300 gigabytes of live production data. The day GitLab, a company valued in the billions, simply vanished. The setting is January 31st, 2017. GitLab was flying high. They were the cool, open-source alternative to GitHub. Companies all over the world trusted their proprietary code, their most valuable intellectual property, to GitLab's servers. But behind the scenes, the infrastructure was screaming. The primary PostgreSQL database was under attack. Not from hackers, but from ISPA. Bots were hammering the platform, creating fake snippets and issues, overloading the system. The database replication was lagging behind. The master server was writing data, but the slave servers, the real-time backups, couldn't keep up with the pace. They were choking. The engineering team was exhausted. It was almost 11 p.m. in the Netherlands. One of the system engineers, let's call him YP, was trying to fix the replication. Latency was high. The site was unstable. The pressure was immense. Imagine the scene. You are alone at the terminal. The company Slack is on fire with alerts, and you need to make the database sync. IP decides that the best way to fix the replication is to wipe the data directory of one of the secondary servers that was corrupted, so it could download a fresh copy from the master. A standard operation. Risky, but standard. He opens two terminal windows, one connected to db2.cluster, the secondary, the target, and another connected to db1.cluster, the primary, the production, the heart of the company. He types the command to wipe the directory. He presses enter. But nothing happens. The server doesn't complain, but the disk space doesn't free up. He waits a second. 2 seconds. Strange, he thinks. Then he looks at the terminal prompt, and that is the moment the blood freezes in your veins. That is the moment the sound of the world disappears, and you only hear your own heart beating in your ears. He wasn't on DB2, he was on DB1. He had just executed rmrf/var/opt/gitlab/postgresql data on the master production server. He frantically canceled the command cotreg c, cotreg c, cotreg c. But computers are fast. Humans are slow. The command ran for only a few seconds. But for an enterprise server with NVMe SSDs, a few seconds is an eternity. Of the 310 gigabytes of data that existed moments before, only 4.5 gigabytes remained. In the blink of an eye, the entire history of commits, merge requests, wikis, and issues from thousands of companies around the world had been vaporized. GitLab was offline. The engineer posted on the internal Slack, "I just deleted the production database." The silence that followed must have been deafening. But here is where the story stops being about human error and becomes a case study on the fragility of modern technology. Because, look, deleting the database is bad, but that's what backups are for, right? Every serious company has backups. Daily backups, hourly backups, cloud snapshots. Recovering this should be just a matter of time, an inconvenience of a few hours. The GitLab team rushed to the backup systems, and that was when the real nightmare began. The terror wasn't the RMR, the terror was what came next. Plan A. Restore the automated database dump. They went to check the directory. It was empty. The backup script had been silently failing for months because the PostgreSQL binary version was incompatible with the server version. Nobody saw the error because nobody tested the backup. Plan B. Azure Disk Snapshots. GitLab ran on Microsoft's cloud at the time. They went to check the snapshots. It turns out snapshots were enabled for the file server, but asterisk, not asterisk for the database server. Zero data. Plan C. LVM Logical Volume Manager Backups. They are taken every 24 hours. They checked. Those failed too. Plan D. Amazon S3 Backup. They sent backups to AWS regularly. They went to look at the S3 bucket. It was empty. The upload script was also broken. Out of 5 different safety mechanisms, *5* failed simultaneously. The engineer didn't just delete the company, he discovered the company had been flying without a parachute for months. The illusion of security was total. They thought they had redundancy, but they only had hope. At this point, the incident spilled out of private chat rooms and onto Twitter. The whole world knew GitLab was down. The company's reputation was melting in real time. They had 2 options. Try to hide the extent of the disaster and invent an unscheduled maintenance excuse, or do something radical. They chose radical. They started a YouTube live stream. They put a camera in the engineer's war room, shared the Google Docs screen where they were writing the recovery plan, and let the world watch. Thousands of developers tuned in, not to mock them, but because that was the naked, raw reality of our profession. We saw exhausted engineers with deep bags under their eyes, desperately trying to find any fragment of data that had survived. After hours of panic, a light appeared at the end of the tunnel. An engineer remembered that, by chance, they had configured a staging test server 6 hours before the incident. And, miraculously, the backup process for that test server had worked. They had a copy. It was a 6-hour-old copy, which meant 6 hours of global data was lost forever. But the company could be saved. The problem, the staging server was in the Netherlands. The production server was in the USA. The transfer rate was slow. The world watched a progress bar move, pixel by pixel, throughout the entire night. It was the most tense file transfer in the history of the internet. In the end, GitLab came back. The engineer who typed the command wasn't fired. On the contrary, the company's transparency in admitting their backup systems were trash and their processes failed earned the respect of the community. They understood a fundamental lesson of site reliability engineering SRE. You can't blame the human for pressing the wrong button if the system allows the wrong button to destroy everything. But the financial and technical lesson here is much more brutal for you watching this. First, backups do not exist. Only restores exist. If you haven't tested restoring your backup in the last week, you don't have a backup. You have a useless file taking up disk space. GitLab lost customer data because they trusted automated scripts that failed silently. Second, the cost of complexity. Why did the backups fail? Because the system was too complex with too many moving parts, legacy scripts, and a lack of real monitoring. The more complex your infrastructure, the higher the chance of a catastrophic error. Third, the fragility of digital value. A billion-dollar company almost ceased to exist because of 10 characters typed into a terminal. All the value, all the salaries, all the contracts depended on the integrity of magnetic bits on a hard drive. In the digital world, wealth is ephemeral. It needs to be protected not with prayers, but with rigorous protocols of security and redundancy. The GitLab story ended well, with only 6 hours of data lost. But there are others. The company Codespaces, which hosted code in the cloud, was breached by hackers who gained access to the AWS console. The hackers demanded a ransom. The company didn't pay and tried to recover access. The hackers saw this, and in minutes, deleted all snapshots, all backups, all virtual machines. Codespaces closed its doors 12 hours later, deleted from existence. This isn't a story to scare you about being an intern. It is a story to wake you up about the level of responsibility we have. The line between a functioning system and a financial catastrophe is very, very thin. And the only thing preventing chaos isn't luck. It is technical competence. You need to understand Linux at a deep level, not just copy commands from Stack Overflow. You need to understand permissions, file systems, and how the kernel manages processes. You need to understand offensive security to know how to protect your backups from being deleted along with the main system. And you need to know how to automate this with Python so that human error is removed from the equation. Most developers know how to write code, but they don't know how to keep the system alive. And that is where the money is. The market pays well for those who build, but it pays much better for those who prevent the collapse. If you want to go below the surface and understand how this infrastructure actually works, how to harden servers, and how to automate security so you aren't the engineer sweating in front of a terminal, I created the path. My bundle, The Hacker's Blueprint, covers exactly this. It combines Python automation, ethical hacking techniques to predict disasters, and the cybersecurity protocols that separate the amateurs from the professionals. Don't wait for the day you type RMRF in the wrong place to start taking infrastructure seriously. The link is in the description. Master the machine before it deletes you.